Echo Network Studios here in Royal Oak, Michigan. This is Odd Musings, and we are your hosts. I'm Brett Pinson.
And I'm Scott Zambelli.
Welcome back to another fun episode 27. And this week it is Cartoonapalooza.
Yes.
And we talk about our favorite cartoons, talking some Saturday morning, afternoon stuff that we used to like growing up.
Can you do any cartoon voices? I can't.
Once in a while I can do a pretty good Pinky. My voice is a little off right now because it's still a little raspy, but I can do that pretty good. So if you ask me how I'm pondering, I can try to do that.
What, like Pinky in the Brain?
Yeah, Pinky in the Brain. Yeah,
that did not sound like Pinky.
Again, my voice is off this week. I have to get a little bit higher for that.
I cannot do any voice.
I'm no Rob Paulson, but
I mean, there's always my amazing Sean Connery, but that's about it.
my voice is
not amazing.
I've done Cartman like, but again, that's right. I can do Cartman pretty good.
Yes, you can do a Cartman.
Cheesy Booze. Yeah, Cheesy Booze.
I knew you could do a voice. That's the one I was thinking of.
I can do Cartman, and then I used to have the laugh down from the bully on Simpson.
You got that.
And a few here and there, but yeah, Pinky I can do. If my voice has been a little raspy from the weekend, and I've done Pinky at the shows for kids, and they're like, "Oh my god, it almost sounds like him." I was like, "Sure, it does." Of course, my favorite Pinky line is, "Are you pondering on pondering?" He's like, "Well, I think so, Brian, but if they call them sad meals, then nobody would eat them." But yeah,
cool.
I love cartoons, and that's I'm excited about this episode. We're gonna have a lot of fun with this,
definitely,
and that stuff. But we had a fun weekend, though.
Yeah, Akron Comic-Con.
Yeah, over in Akron, Ohio, the tire capital of the world. It's where Goodyear's based out of.
Yeah, that show's always a fun one to do. I mean, not only are the fans great, but then also within the industry, our friends that we get to see on the road. There's because this is where we kind of wrap up our year for a lot of us and go into hibernation for the winter, because there's not many shows that go on between now and like February or so.
Yeah, I know there's a few more Comic-Cons this month. Friends we saw this past week in T-24, we're talking about them a little more today, but they are going to Rhode Island this weekend and doing Rhode Island Comic-Con. I think it's this weekend, either this weekend or next weekend. I forget the dates.
It's soon. I can't remember which.
Yep. So if you're listening and you're going to Rhode Island this weekend, they'll be there. If you're going next weekend and it's still the same show, then they'll be there.
Yep. And then among our friends we got to see Jay Fife and Sean Forney. Yeah. You got to interview them.
We did a fun little interview, about a half hour. I'm going to be doing some video editing on that, put up different segments, and then I was mentioning to Sean yesterday, I talked to him on the phone. He sent me some images so I can throw on the video. Yeah. So we're talking about an upcoming idea for a Kickstarter they're going to do.
Yeah, it sounded really cool, and look forward to see what they produce out of that. I mean, they're both so talented.
Yeah, looking forward to that, and I think it's one of those ones, I think going forward, I'm going to try to get all our interviews as audio rips. So if you're listening to us on iTunes, watch for a bunch of different interviews to hit as separate from the episodes, and so we'll have that available too, as well as on our YouTube channel. And YouTube is definitely a place to find us. We put all the video episodes up, and just Google Odd Musings under YouTube, and you'll find us. And if we can hit that 100 subscribers, then I think they can let us have an actual youtube.com/name program. So I'm looking forward to that if we can get there for that. But yeah, we'll get to see them. Got to see
so Vinny and Lisa. T-24 are sponsors.
The fun was Saturday night. Now I don't like to do the big dinners, but we did, and we had a nice sized group. But it wasn't 2; it was 9 of us, and we had Vinny and Lisa, Jay and his friend Michelle were with us, as well as Sean and Steph Forney, you and I and Mom, Connie the Comic-Con Mom, were with us, and had a great meal. We went there last year, and I went back again this year. And a place we went to is called the Merchant Tavern in Akron, and really good food. I liked it's almost like a farm to table type place, but they have a lot of good fresh foods, and enjoyed everything I got. I got fried raviolis, and that was
they're
amazing.
Really good. And then the food there is great, but as far as hanging out too, we got to go see Thor.
Yes, now we saw it on Thursday night separately,
right?
And Lisa and Vinny had contacted us and made a date with us to go Friday after we set up to see Thor.
Yep.
And when Scott mentioned online he was seeing it, Lisa was a little upset that he was messing with her date. They did, and we didn't spoil it for them. No spoilers at all. We went to a place called the Highland Theater. Now, Scott and I did that last year with Dr. Strange. It's a great local cinema in Akron. In fact, I was talking with Rack, Bobby Krause, good friend of ours, and
great artist.
Fantastic artist. And look for Rack Graphics online.
RAK.
Yep. And it's him and his brother Dave. So if you guys, and they're supposed to be listening to our show here soon or watching us on YouTube. So hey guys, if you're watching, it's good to see you guys this past weekend. Look forward to seeing you guys too. They're brothers for sure. They not just with each other but with us, but they
for sure.
Yeah.
You got verification of it.
Well, not just with each other but with us. And what I mean by that is I've known him for so long. We're all like family in that aspect of we got to hang out many times. I miss MegaCon with them because they would stay with us at the condo.
Yeah, it was
and we had
there.
such a great time. And going to the barbecue joint with Bobby and Dave was always fun.
Dave always cracks me up. I love Dave.
Oh, Dave's awesome. He's awesome. It was great to see him, and he's doing one. We had a little bit with so Dave, you're watching. Keep going with that diabetes diet. You know, you're fighting it, and doing good. And so we got to see them. And I got way off track on the thing. Oh yeah, back to Thor. The reason I mentioned it with the Highland Theater was that's where Bobby and Dave go, and they talk about how great it is. $5 for an evening show
For a brand new show. These aren't like shows that have been out for 10 weeks.
Yeah, and
Thor had just come out.
It's a 600-seat theater.
Yep.
It's locally owned. In fact, we didn't talk to him this year, but last year we did meet one of the owners. Correct. And even walking in, though, he took our tickets and was thanking us for coming out.
Yeah.
I looked at the place, I'm like, for $5, I would go there. And if they kept the movie, like, if Thor was there for like 2 weeks, what's another $5 if it's a local theater to go and see it again? Especially when it's $14 to $20, depending on where you go anymore.
Now, for you, seeing Thor for a second time, I liked it. I liked it just as much.
What I enjoyed was the first one I saw in 3D, and the second one was not 3D for at the Highland. I think it's a movie that you don't have to see in 3D. It didn't do anything for it. The depth of field you sometimes get was okay, but the film itself, the way they designed it, it looks great either way.
Right.
Story-wise, I loved it even more. I love the rock guy. Was it
Korg?
Korg, yeah. Well, I found out it was played by the director of the movie, and he cracked me up. He was just like, yeah, it's gonna start a revolution in that, but I ran out of flyers.
I love the line of for New Doug.
Oh yeah, go get him, New Doug.
Yeah, we won't give away spoilers to the storyline just in case you haven't seen it. We're not doing a full review here.
No.
But it really is. It's a fun movie. Even seeing it a second time, it was just as fun.
It continues to prove that Marvel knows what they're doing with their movies, and it's story-wise, it's great. You don't have. And what I like about these movies too is you don't really have to have seen any other movies to kind of get an idea of what's going on. They drop you right into it.
Right.
They start off with and this one had a lot more humor than the previous Thor movies.
Yeah, and I have to say this one, Thor 3 by far is the best Stan Lee cameo.
Yes.
I don't think there's any cameo he did better.
I'm waiting to see how many people we see next year at conventions dressed up as.
So watch for him. If you haven't seen it yet, look for the Stan Lee cameo. You won't be disappointed, and you can't miss it. There's no way you'll miss it.
Oh no, it was great. It was definitely a great surprise when I first saw it, and then second time I was looking forward to it.
Yep.
So,
and then another thing I did this weekend was I finally caught up on Stranger Things.
Yeah, we get to Akron, and he hadn't finished the last few episodes.
Yeah, I was on episode. I had 3 episodes left, so 7 through 9.
So it was like Saturday night, I think it was. You watched
7 and 8.
Yeah, 7
and
and
8. Then that morning,
Sunday morning,
I watched 9.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. I watched them again with him. So
wow, what a powerful they did. People get so hung up when they create these storylines. When I talk to people, they get so caught up on the gimmick of what the story is, they forget about the relationships. And Stranger Things is so good about the relationships. You care about these kids. The whole storyline with Hopper and Eleven was so powerful. There's so many different layers going on in that relationship and other relationships too that were it's so satisfying the way they unfolded.
What I loved was, the first series of Stranger Things, we meet the kids, we meet Will's family, basically. Mike's family is in and out here and there too, because Nancy's a big part of it, and their parents are there. But we didn't meet anybody. We didn't meet Lucas's family. Didn't meet Dustin's family. So it was different. This year, we get to meet Lucas's family, his mom, dad, and sister, and you get to meet Dustin's mom. Don't know where his dad is. That's never been talked about yet.
And that's something the fans have noticed is that there's been zero mention of.
So maybe we'll find out something more next year. But in some ways, and I love Dustin through this, and he wasn't full Cartman, but in some ways it reminded me of Cartman a little bit when he talked to his mom.
I think a lot of ways too, Dustin is the voice of the fans. Like the interaction with the dad at the one part where he's like, they're so useless. I think he's the one that voices what the fans are thinking.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
But I realize that his favorite words are SOB.
Yeah.
For you kids listening, ask your parents. But yeah, it was, and I loved it. It was great. 9 episodes. What I liked about it was they added one more episode from last season, and it was necessary to have that 9 episodes.
It really was. And it wasn't just fluff material thrown in.
No, everything has a purpose, and I think some of the stuff that you see, especially episode 7, without getting into anything on that episode, is set up for the future years, because it's been renewed through 5 seasons for sure. And so I think they're setting up, and I know the Duffer Brothers, who created it and oversee everything and direct this, they have a definite ending in mind. They know where they want to go with this.
Now, did you watch all of the Beyond Stranger Things?
Yeah. For after Stranger Things, then you can watch the Beyond Stranger Things on Netflix. Don't watch Beyond Stranger Things before watching Stranger Things 2, because there's spoilers everywhere, and they warn you ahead of time. So
yeah.
But I enjoyed that, because what I liked about it was a great way to look at different parts of this series. They're not like Talking Dead, where it's right after each episode. There's only 6 of them.
This is talking about the series as a whole,
right? And interviewing different cast members. Some come in for a couple episodes. It looked like
the Duffer Brothers.
Duffer Brothers are in most of them.
Are they?
Yeah.
Cool.
So we get to learn a little bit more about them, as
Duffer
well as
Brothers
the executive
sounds
producer.
like Simpsons characters to me. Duffers.
Yeah.
Duff Beer. Is that Duff Beer?
See, I always thought more like what was the one? Billy Madison. O'Doyle rules. Duffer Brother rules.
There you go.
So but,
yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the next season of Stranger Things. I already found a countdown clock online yesterday. Someone's counting down to it, because they announced the date already for season 3.
When's the date?
I don't have it memorized.
Okay.
It's 352 days away.
Okay, so it's in October next year.
Yeah,
I think that's a good time, and I like that if they do like he did this one it's almost a year after the events of the first one,
right?
So it'll take place around that same time. So maybe we can see Halloween again next year with them, and go from there. So because it seems that fall seems to be when things happen, but even if they don't, if they started even earlier or a little bit later, it'll still be interesting to see. Because we get fall in Indiana, so they don't have to deal with snow. True. Series, but so we'll go from there.
It'd be a boring show if they do it in the winter.
Right.
All the kids are locked in their house because of 3 feet of snow.
Yeah. Now, of course, I shared it, and Scott shared it on the Odd Musings page on Facebook. Was the perfect Stranger Things?
Oh yeah. Yeah. On Jimmy Kimmel's show, he did a nice fun skit.
Yeah, it was like if Perfect Strangers from the 80s with Balky and his cousin was merged with Perfect Stranger. We with Stranger Things, and it's like he has a cousin. Balky has a cousin coming to stay with them, or a cousin of a friend, and it's a Demo.
No, wasn't it? Didn't he say I have to watch my cousin's dog named?
Oh
Demo?
yeah, it was his dog. Yeah, it was cousin's dog
because of the Demo dog.
It was Dem. Dem O'Gorgon.
Dem O'Gorgon. Yeah. Is he Irish?
Yeah. And then you get a nice surprise visit with the 4 boys from Stranger Things.
Yeah. So we do have that posted on our
go watch that.
Odd Musings Facebook thread. So if you go to our wall there, you'll find the link to that.
And besides our YouTube channel, which you can definitely subscribe to, make sure you go on and follow us on Facebook for stuff that we post there all the time. And we're on Twitter as well, Odd Musings and stuff like that. So go to oddmusings.com. We have links to everything for that. But as we're talking about Akron, though, we had a chance to hang out with T-Minus 24, and I see you got a new T-shirt from them.
I did. It's the quote, "That's what," and then the quote is by she.
So that's what she said.
That's what she said. That's right. It always makes me think of Michael Scott from Office when I see this shirt. So I had to get it. I picked it up this weekend in Akron.
Awesome.
So anyway, so T-Minus 24 is a creator of unique pop culture T-shirts and vinyl decals. At T-24.com, you'll find over 140 graphic tees and hundreds of vinyl decals based on your favorite movies, TV shows, comic books, and video games. So go to their website at T-24.com. That's TEEMINUS 24.com, and check out their fun selection of products. And after you find something you like, use coupon code ODD, ODD, at checkout to get 10% off your entire purchase. You can also follow T-24 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where they post about their latest designs and share updates from the conventions they attend. Shirts to fit your fandom. T-24. And Christmas is right around the corner. You still have time to get those orders in and receive them in time to give them as Christmas presents. So,
yeah, and using that coupon code ODD saves 10%, so you can buy a bunch. Heck, buy 10 and
bunches.
Save 10% off the 10 you bought.
You could have a t-shirt explosion in your house.
Yeah, and they also got buttons and decals and things like that. It's a lot of fun. And I like their vinyl decals. They do take pride in the quality of all their products, and including the decals. They want them to last. You put them on a car, you're looking at 5 to 7 years is what Vinny says they should last based on weather conditions and things like that. Of course, hopefully nobody's pulling on them. So,
cool.
Yeah. So definitely had fun.
Go check them out.
Yep. So cartoons,
Cartoonapalooza, as you coined it.
I love cartoons. I've said for many years, sometimes only the good things on TV is cartoons. I don't like everything out there. There's a lot of the current stuff I'm not crazy about, but there's some of my current ones I like were Disney. Like their Phineas and Ferb run. I just got into Gravity Falls. I'm a little bit behind on that. I know it ended its run, but it's a really good series on Disney. Nickelodeon's had a ton of cool stuff over the years, like Fairly Odd Parents. They were supposed to do a spin-off at one time of a kid that goes into space to like a space academy, which they would have done, and that and it was a character that Timmy on that liked, so I thought it'd been fun to see that. But yeah, I mean, what about you? I mean, you're into cartoons.
Oh yeah, I love cartoons. Enjoy it a lot. Yeah. So growing up, kids today, you got 24-hour TV. You have Cartoon Networks. You have all these things, but growing up, we had Saturday morning cartoons. You had to wait all week, and so Saturday was a magical day. Yeah. You couldn't wait till Saturday because that's when all your shows were on.
Well, and I talk about this a lot at shows because I have a lot of artwork that it's actually some classic cartoons based and inspired by, and things like Herculoids and Schoolhouse Rock. I've done some artwork based on and things like that. And these kids today don't understand. It was like I have the younger kids that know Schoolhouse Rock because teachers show it in class going, "Oh, I hate this because my teacher made me watch it a billion times." We used to look forward to it. And it was a commercial. I mean, technically, the Schoolhouse Rock is a commercial.
Yeah, it was a little PSA announcement type.
Yeah, but the music was great. We had fun, and we didn't see it all the time. So
and it was memorable too. I still to this day like I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill, or
Well, yeah, it's all different. Like We the People when they do the Constitution, and I used to be able to do the whole preamble because I had to memorize from watching it on there.
Right,
and it was all during all the fun cartoons that we could only watch on Saturday mornings.
Right,
majority of these weren't shown during the week when we first would see them. Things changed down the road, and eventually we'd see some crossover between afternoon shows to Saturday, but that was mainly in the 80s.
So what were some of your personal favorites growing up?
Oh, man.
What do you remember watching when you were
I was mentioning
Little Brett?
Little Brett. Well, in the 70s, I loved watching all the Hanna-Barbera stuff that would pop up, like Hong Kong Phooey. I liked the Walter Lantz, Woody Woodpecker. Yep. Hercules, as I mentioned, was also a favorite when I was a kid. Super Friends.
And Thundar was the equivalent from wasn't Thundar from the other company?
Thundar was Hanna-Barbera.
Oh, also?
Yeah, and it came out around the 80s. It was it was designed by Jack Kirby, of all people. He designed the characters. Right. And that came out around that time. And that's when they would come out with different things for Saturday mornings. And the superhero stuff had taken off again in the 70s with Super Friends was big. And then they did Challenge of the Super Friends. And they're doing other superhero type shows. And they created this new one here, which is more of a futuristic barbarian. Definitely a departure from some of their other stuff, but reminiscent of the stuff they did in the 60s between like Johnny Quest, Herculoids, things like that brought different stories around. Yeah. I definitely enjoyed that. It was also that 3-person team, which they did different things. Like they brought out Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was a 3-person team. So you had multiple characters without having too many. Super Friends, you had a billion characters, and sometimes that can be a little tough money-wise to deal with for all the different animations they had to do. And that I noticed that Janice, I was looking at Scott's phone here, commented, and one of my favorite Saturday morning cartoons is one of hers, Dungeons and Dragons. Yep. I loved that show. In fact, I wish I still had them. I used to write scripts once in a while based on the series because I loved it so much. And that was some early writing.
That was a fun show with the dynamics between the characters and stuff. And the Dungeon Master was like a total ripoff of Yoda. He was just Yoda, but not colored green. But I really enjoyed that show all the time.
Yeah, well, it was post Return of the Jedi, so it came out after that. Yep. And that's when Dungeons and Dragons really got big. And actually, when it came out, I had just gotten into Dungeons and Dragons in 6th 6th grade, it got introduced to me with the basic sets. You can learn how to basically play and build characters and that. So I definitely love that one.
And she also liked G-Force. G-Force was a favorite of mine.
I was a big fan of G-Force.
I love G-Force.
G-Force, Battle of the Planets.
Yeah, it originated as Gatchaman in Japan in the 70s, came over to the States, but it was a very violent. It had cursing and swearing in it. So, and the bad guy turned out to be a hermaphrodite, so it looked like a woman but was dressed like a guy, and they're like, okay, American audiences can't handle this.
Well, they toned a bunch of that down.
Well, so they not only did they tone it down, but it first came as Battle of the Planets, and they wanted to make it more Star Wars like.
Yeah.
So then they like changed backgrounds in it and changed some of the scenes, and then they created the little robot character who would come in. I forget his name in Battle of the Planets, but he would kind of narrate, because so when they had to chop up the story too much and it didn't make sense, he would come in to narrate.
Well, and they did that with a lot of the Japanese shows. They would re-edit them, change them around a lot.
Right.
Voltron went through some of that.
Yep.
That was another favorite of mine, was Voltron, around the same time. When we talked about earlier today was Robotech. What people know as Robotech Macross. The storylines are a little bit different from the original Macross series, as it was called, and they continued on like they did with G-Force and Voltron with different iterations. They were actually completely different shows, but they had similar themes, so they bought them all to put together and call it like Voltron with the cars. He was just a giant robot. It wasn't Voltron or something else.
Gatchaman, I believe, was the first. They were the original 5-person team, and that's where Voltron and many other shows, they kind of created that
Well, the Japanese in the late 70s, early 80s, that's a lot of when they have an idea and it's a hit, they do that over and over and over again.
Yeah, so you always had the 5-person team where you had the leader, you had the emo kind of depressing guy, you had the princess type girl, you had the heavyset guy, and then you had the little pipsqueak kid.
Right.
And
in some ways, I mean, that's really in cartoons. They also emulated in live action, like with Power Rangers and other shows very similar to that.
Exactly.
They all had that like dynamic. It was something that works for the Japanese that translated well over here too.
Yeah.
And that stuff. But definitely, I mean, a lot of cartoons through the 70s and 80s I loved, and still watch today. I buy stuff whenever I get a chance to. In fact, I would say 30 to 40% of my entire DVD Blu-ray collection is animation of some kind.
Yep. And let's see. Super Friends. Super Friends was huge when I was really young. And I remember when, because I was so young at the time, I didn't understand the difference between Marvel and DC.
Right.
And I was always like, why don't they let Spider-Man be part of the Super Friends? It used to bug me as a child.
I used to think the same thing, because I used to watch Electric Company just to see Spider-Man.
Exactly.
And I loved Super Friends, and that's when and Super Friends was great in the 70s for us as little kids, because it introduced us to these superheroes, because we didn't always have access to the comic books. And then when you got the comics, like, oh my gosh, I can read more adventures of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and all these people, Aquaman and Rajgan, Big Bang Theory. So he wants Aquaman doesn't suck. Aquaman's gonna be cool.
But it was just fun. It was a fun one, and they also had their little educational segments at the end of the episodes.
And that was part of wanting to have educational TV. They wanted cartoons worked, but they would always have some kind of moral. And like with the superhero shows especially, and then leading into the 80s with like He-Man, G.I. Joe and stuff, they always had their moral at the end.
Yeah, G.I. Joe was
the more you know.
No, not the more you know. Knowing is half the battle.
Knowing is half the battle. That's right. Yeah, knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe.
The more you know was that.
That's right. There's a star thing on NBC. Yeah. And then He-Man always had his little bit where he'd come and talk to the audience afterwards about what happened on the episode.
He'd always have his hands on his hip, chest pumped, and he'd be like, "In today's episode, we learned why Orko needed friends." Or something.
So stuff like that, and that was always fun.
And Orko.
Well,
what was with that character?
You've always got to have the little sidekick comic relief, and they had that even in Dungeons and Dragons with Uni, the little unicorn, and the little barbarian kid.
That's right. Now, I will say this: I was watching the Masters of the Universe. He-Man is on Netflix now.
Yes.
So I started rewatching it. There is a lot of stuff in there that could not be accidental. That is overt sexually sexually referenced actions. I'm like, it's like disturbing watching it now. Like, oh my God. I'm not going to get into the details, but watch the episode. I want to say it's the second episode where this comet crashes on the planet, and it's pretty intense. Yeah. what happens and how they solve the problem. So, right. I'll just say it has to do with Tila doing something to this old man, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah, some of the stuff is like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, I'm watching this. This was about 2 months ago. I'm watching. I'm like, oh my God, what am I witnesses here?
Well, it's cartoons going back. We go back even further. Go back to like the old shorts that were shown in the movie theaters from starting in the 20s through the 30s and 40s, the heyday of Disney and Warner Brothers shorts. Warner Brothers being, I think, the most popular, mainly because they went right to TV with it in the 50s and were re-airing all that stuff. Disney did a little bit, but it was mainly tied to like their Mickey Mouse Club and things like that. And they'd have a few shows here and there, but Warner Brothers was really big. I mean, Saturday morning cartoons, we all remember the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Hour, and other ones had like Daffy Duck special afternoon shows. I remember growing up, and it was Porky Pig, and it was all the black and white cartoons.
Oh yeah,
and those were ones they didn't show on Saturdays because they had to show full color.
Flintstones. Growing up, I used to watch Flintstones, and I got a kick off of it. I didn't remember this. You mentioned it the other day, but they were actually doing cigarette ads.
Yes,
and I came about 2 weeks ago or so. I came across that, and I showed it to my mother, and she's like, "Oh my God, I remember this."
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was real. It's not a fake thing on the internet. It's a real thing.
Fred Flintstone sitting there smoking cigarettes with Barney.
I think he's smoking a Pall Mall, and he's like, "It's so smooth."
Yeah. It's like,
but you got to remember though, it was, even though its cartoons aren't always for kids, and Warner Brothers, like in the theaters, they weren't always for kids. MGM back in the day when they did the Red Hot Riding Hood cartoon in the theaters, it was such a popular hit. They actually had people in the theaters were making the projectionists show it over and over again before they would get to the feature because they liked it so much.
Right.
Things like that. So cartoons weren't always for kids.
Oh, true.
And so even through stuff that we saw that, oh yeah, this is for kids, there was always those adult tones in there.
Oh
and different things that I think they just slipped in there to mess with everybody.
Let's see, another memory from my childhood, Popeye.
Oh yeah,
Popeye. Oh my! When I was little, I ate so much spinach because my mom told me it would make me as strong as Popeye. So I ate it like crazy. And then one day I learned it doesn't quite work. I stopped spinach right then.
See, I always liked spinach, and I know it was because of Popeye. I may have tried it because of Popeye, but I remember my little brother loved Popeye, and he wanted Popeye spinach. And he took one bite and never ate it again. Yeah. Or at least as a kid.
He would squeeze the can, pop that thing, and then I would love, like, you would see like the tattoo come to life, like the battleship on his forearm start firing the gun. As he would get strong.
I wonder how many kids eat their spinach because they want to be like Popeye.
Well, I know I did. And like I said, I stopped eating it once I realized it didn't work like that.
Yeah, so I
think Popeye's spinach had something in it.
Yeah. Now, of course, I like the original Popeye shorts, which again was a theatrical thing, and then they went to the TV shows. And at times we met like Popeye's nephews, and him and Olive Oil were always going back and forth with Bluto, and they had different iterations of that. But and even though it wasn't a cartoon, the live action Robin Williams was always fun because it was like a live action cartoon.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
and it was Shelley Duvall.
Shelley Duvall played Olive Oil, and I forget the rest of the cast, but there's a lot of different people that were older character actors that were in it, and they built the city, the town that it was all in.
It's still there.
Yes, I seen something online a couple years ago. It's still there, and you can go visit it, I guess. But it was a really cool it was an early live action remake of a cartoon that worked. So it was always coming on that. So what other cartoons did you like besides Popeye?
Let's see. Well, the big one for me, I would have to say, there's two big ones. This would be more my elementary school, early junior high days. Was G.I. Joe and Transformers. Transformers especially. I love that, and especially once it came out with the movie, which to this day I consider the only Transformer movie ever released.
Definitely the best.
Yeah. Well, it was so amazing because with Transformers, I know you know this, but for those who don't know, the toy companies made these shows, they really were meant to be advertisements for whatever the new toy of the week was.
Yes, and all the different parent groups went after them for it right away.
Yeah, but with Transformers especially, they didn't realize that anyone actually cared about these characters. So then they came out with the movie, and the only purpose of the movie was to kill off all the Generation 1 characters, so because they were going to have this brand new toy line release, and they wanted to introduce all the new characters. And so, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this from
31 years ago,
Optimus Prime dies. Well, they got flooded. Even Peter Cullen, who does the voice of Optimus, didn't realize people actually cared about Optimus.
Right.
And they had so much mail coming in, whole offices were being filled of all these letters from kids crying and parents saying, you ruined my kid's childhood and all these things. So they're like,
well, the movie was very adult themed compared to the TV show.
It was the Game of Thrones of cartoons at the time. I mean, you had Ironhide executed point blank range.
George R. R. Martin got his idea for Game of Thrones from that.
Probably. But you know what? Had Hasbro understood what they had, they probably would have ruined the movie.
Well, and that's, of course, pre-internet day. So, we as kids, every day on the playground or at school and stuff like that, talking and like, oh my God, did you watch Transformers last night? Did you see this and that? A new episode.
But for the movie, we go in just thinking it's a big Transformers episode, and everyone's being murdered.
Yeah.
And for us, it's like your mouth is dropped wide open, and you're like,
the violence was abounding.
What's going on?
It changed a lot of things. I think it showed, even like if you watch like stuff like He-Man, it was easy for them to introduce new characters in their episodes, and they came out with a new toy. Yeah. And the beauty of the toys was they were all the same mold. They just changed what was on the outside.
My theory is Eternia has a very high level of gravity because all of the He-Man characters have those short, stubby, squatted legs.
I think all the food has like permanent steroids.
But their legs had such stunted growth.
Well, my brother used to collect all the He-Man toys, so I played He-Man with him, and he's 8 years younger than me, so of course I'd help him set up everything. We'd have fun with battles and stuff like that. But they had like 100 different He-Man toys and stuff like that. Yeah. I know I've talked with our friend Sean Forney a couple times. He's a big He-Man fan.
Oh yeah, he just did that awesome commission piece that he had posted.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah, it was Skeletor versus Mumra.
Yes, yeah, it was a crossover piece.
Yeah, from and I know you weren't a big fan of Lion-O and
Lion-O. No, yeah,
and the rest of the Thundercats.
I'm not sure why. I never got into Thundercats. I mean, theoretically, it would be right up my alley. Everything about it, but it just didn't grab for me. But it was a great cartoon, animation wise.
Yeah, I used to watch all, especially the beauty of the afternoon cartoons like He-Man, the Thundercats, Silverhawks came out around then, and things like that.
You remember Mask?
Yes,
I loved Mask.
Yeah, Mask was for around here, anyways. Growing up, it was a syndicated show that I saw on like Sundays.
Yeah, I used to have a few of the toys there and stuff. That was really cool.
Yeah, Mask was cool, and it's still kind of quite popular. I run into people once in a while, ask if I have any artwork based on Mask. I see some of the comic books still here and there.
What's funny is another big one from that era is Smurfs.
Yes.
Now I know Smurfs very well because my sister had to watch Smurfs. So and I had to let her watch some cartoons of hers. So Smurfs would be on. But what amazes me when I at Comic Cons talk about the Smurfs, because I used to have a Smurfette piece and that I used to sell. It was a sexy grown up Smurf.
You bad boy.
But it would lead us talking about Smurfs. The women almost never knew Smurfette's origin, but the guys always did.
Yeah, it was from Gargamel.
Yes.
Yeah, Gargamel created her, and then
he did a spell. He created her using a black stone as her heart for her heart. Did the spell, and she had black hair.
Right.
And he sent her out in the woods so that she could find where their village is, and then she would report back to him so Gargamel could find them. Now, what I always find funny is then she betrays them, and everything ends up okay. But then the Smurfs accept her into their home, even though she betrayed them. And what happens when she becomes real?
She gets a real heart and
blonde hair. I always laugh like, what's the moral? What's the moral of the story here? Blondes are
dark hair bad, blonde hair good.
So,
I used to like Smurfs. I watch that all the time. I have my little brother and sister are younger, not little anymore. We're all old. and that. But I used to watch Smurfs. Now Smurfs, of course, started off. There was a movie called Smurfs and the Magic Flute. Came out a couple years before this series, and they sound completely different. They had some weird sound in their voices.
I never even heard of it.
They did modulate. I think it's on Netflix, or it was at one point.
Interesting.
And some weird modulation on that. But it's created by a guy named Peo, and it's from France. So the Smurfs have been big over in France for years. I think comic books, stuff like that.
Do you know why they're blue? Why Smurfs are blue?
I don't.
They live in those mushroom houses.
Yep.
And there is a real mushroom that was supposed to represent. And if you eat them, your skin will get a bluish tint. So that is why they're blue.
Okay.
And you know how tall they are?
Not entirely, no.
3 apples high.
3 apples high
is the official measurement.
So
I know way too much.
So I mean, of course, what type of apple? See if it's.
They don't say that. They just say 3 apples high.
Because it's like a Washington Red. Those are pretty big.
I know. And I don't know how you fit in those
are only
mushrooms.
about like 3 inches tall.
Mushrooms are. Yeah, so it doesn't quite the math. I don't think he put much thought into the math.
Yeah, but I remember at the heyday in the 80s of the Smurfs, you could go to like Hallmark and stuff like that. They had all the little figures and things. Oh
yeah, my sister had like probably 100 of them.
Yeah.
She had.
They only had 100 Smurfs on this series, but they had like thousands of different ones. I saw some down in New Orleans several years ago. I wanted to get, and I just didn't make enough money at the show to get them. And they were all looked like from a film studio, so they had like a director and a sound guy and a cameraman. So I was like, oh, those are the ones I really want, you know. And
that was pretty cool. And they had Smurfberry Crunch.
Yeah, Smurfberry Crunch. That was pretty popular there for a while. Yep. And that, of course, Smurfs, then because it was such a hit, they had to come out with Snorks. Do you remember Snorks?
Snorks, yeah.
Which was basically Smurfs underwater.
Yep.
And
that goes back to like even like with Gotchman, it worked. So then you got all these copycats. Smurfs, they did that with Snorks.
Well, it was always a way they did it. If you look at Hanna-Barbera, they designed like the Flintstones, then they came out with the Jetsons.
Yep.
And they were always trying to find other ones. I saw online when doing some research for today, there was a show, I always forget the guy's name. It was an animator, just passed away, Iowa. It was a Japanese guy that was an animator for Hanna-Barbera and all them.
Oh, yeah.
Was going to create in the 70s because all the African-American shows were quite popular, like Good Times, stuff like that.
Right.
He was doing a version of the Flintstones called the Blackstones. And I looked at the artwork they had tied into it, and it looked like they were just basically taking Good Times and going to make it in Stone Age. It never went anywhere other than concept and that. But they're always taking those themes. And then you look at like Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo spawned everything for a long time.
There was at least 5 different things.
I think there was more than that. You had Jabberjaw, you had Speed Buggy, you had even like Josie and the Pussycats were part of that, though they were from Archie, but they had their own thing. And then you had of course Scooby-Doo had a million different ones on that.
Yeah.
I told you about the one, the Freaky Phantom. It was one, and it was they're helping, instead of a dog, it was a phantom that they had helping them solve crimes. The whole mystery solving crimes thing was a big thing from the late 60s through the 70s and that. So
how about we talk about Lorangers for a bit?
Yeah, we should take a break because we've got more stuff to get to, and it's already getting to be 10:36. I see that now. Okay. So Lorangers Family Chiropractic. I was just there yesterday. Got adjusted. Saw Dr. Anna. It's Patient Appreciation Week this week in November here, and they're doing like some giveaways. So I put my little ticket in to get me some free X-rays, maybe.
Cool.
And we'll see how that goes. But they had some bagels sitting out, cookies, which Chelsea was at the counter, so she made some of the cookies, and I ate those, and they were very tasty. In fact, I brought one out to Mom because she was waiting for me because we had to go vote yesterday. It was voting day yesterday. And but Lorangers Family Chiropractic Center PC. They are located in Belleville, Michigan, as well as Dexter, Michigan. They take great pride in providing the finest chiropractic care to each and every patient, not just me, but also you.
Awesome.
They also handle Ashley, and that is Scott's daughter. Yep. And on site, they offer digital X-rays. They have massage therapy, which on that, I saw my friend Terry, who does my massages there, had to have emergency gallbladder surgery. So Terry, if you're listening, hope you're feeling better. Look forward to seeing you get back to work. In some ways, just as a side note, I kind of feel like being Jack Nicholson from that movie, As Good as It Gets. And I'll go knock on the door like, are you ready to do massages again? You need to get back to work. What can you do to get back to work? But feel better at that. But they also have orthotics available, Young Living essential oils, aromatherapy. They offer a full line of vitamins, all in a family-oriented environment. give them a call at their Belleville location, 734-697-4244. That's 734-697-4244. Or visit LawrenceFamilyChiropractic.com. We do have a link on oddmusings.com. And if you're not in Southeast Michigan to Mid-Michigan and can't come down to see them, call them and say, hey, who near me could you guys recommend for me to go see? Just like they're going to be doing for Scott and Ashley as she transitions to going to someone more closer to home because she's got a new job.
She does. All right. So after our early years, we aged a little, and the post-1985 years came, and cartoons kind of changed too. They stopped being the commercialized where it's purely for advertising a toy.
Well, and that was also part of the complaints from some of the parent groups then, from like He-Man, all these was, you're just toy commercials.
Yeah, but I think the parent groups back then complained about everything.
Well,
they just complain.
Well, the ones nowadays do too. But all of us cool kids that grew up to be adults, and some of us that are parents, which I'm not, but I'm a really cool uncle, look back on these shows with fond memories and show them to the younger generation. Look, yeah, there was toys available for this stuff, and some have come back around as toys, but when you look back at them, they had morals at the end. They did teach a lesson, and they were fun stories and that. And there was a lot of them, because I mean, the original ones like He-Man and Transformers, they all got like 65 episode orders. Well, that started to change towards the late 80s. That's when Disney got into the game with their Disney afternoon lineup, and they brought like Gummy Bears was a show on Saturday morning. They brought that to the afternoon. They introduced Chip and Dale Rangers, Tailspin, some of my favorite, DuckTales, and Darkwing Duck, as well as Gargoyles. And these were all some of the afternoon stuff, and they were slowly changing through the late 80s to early 90s, partly because of an act by Congress in 1990 that the stations had to start offering more educational programming, and they gave specific guidelines on that. And it was we were talking before we came into the studio today, 96, the FCC started forcing them to actually do more, and that's when we started seeing the demise of Saturday morning cartoons as we knew it. And that, but definitely one of the big things we saw after 85 was The Simpsons. Started off on Tracy Ullman show, and it was little shorts, and they were really badly done. In fact, they had hired a guy to do them.
The characters are actually kind of scary looking.
Well, they shake a lot because it was all hand drawn,
right,
and it was all rushed. I remember hearing other talks on the original origin of them with Matt Groening. They basically found a guy who could do it for almost next to nothing, and they were just 1 to 3 minutes at the tops, and they were all supposed to be little parts in between the Tracy Ullman's live action comedy show. But they got so popular. In fact, a funny thing with research, I came across Milhouse. You know, Bart's best friend. Do you know the first appearance of Milhouse?
What?
It was a Butterfinger commercial.
What?
Yeah. And it was a Butterfinger commercial they did before they did the Christmas special. And that's what introduced Milhouse as his best friend. And from then on, Milhouse was Bart's best friend.
That's interesting. I actually remember that commercial now that you brought that up.
Well, they did several Butterfinger commercials over the years. They were a big sponsor of them for a while.
Very cool.
But I mean, I love The Simpsons. I don't watch as much as I used to because after 8,000 episodes, I can only see so many.
Personally, I didn't care for The Simpsons much. I like them more now at my current age than I did back then. I didn't care for them much. I liked Animaniacs. That was what I watched.
You didn't want to do the Bartman?
I found Bart the whole, because back then everyone was doing Cowabunga, or that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But he ripped it off, my shorts, and
he did Cowabunga too. So.
But all the Bart Simpsons, it annoyed me, honestly.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Animaniacs.
But Animaniacs, I loved Animaniacs. That was what I watched like almost every day.
Yeah, afternoon cartoons during that time, that when they transitioned, I started college in '89, and Tiny Toons started around that time, and I was really big into Tiny Toons because again, you got younger generation versions of the Warner Brother characters I loved, and then had them in there as teachers. So it was a neat little concept that went on for a few years and led into Animaniacs, which I remember when it got announced. I was like, oh man, they're getting rid of Tiny Toons, bringing this Animaniacs out. I don't know. And you fall in love with it right away.
I still, right now, in my car is the Animaniacs CD or with the President song.
That's on my phone.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama,
but they did
Jamaica, Peru.
Such a great job of the writing. I mean, it wasn't made for kids. It was adult entertainment, but it was.
It was classic Warner Brothers in the sense that the jokes went over most of the kids' heads.
Correct.
And they laughed. They weren't overtly in your face like, "Hey, guess what? Here's something bleep 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 bleep." You know.
Right.
But they had some stuff like there's like the dirtiest thing they ever said on the thing, and it really was when you look back on it was they were talking about Prince, and they go, "Oh, you can't finger Prince," and something like that, and they bring out actual Prince, and it's like, wait a minute, and of course that's when Yakko would turn to the camera and he'd do this, but every once in a while go, "Well, good night, folks."
Well, and they did the whole "Hello Nurse" bit, and
Hello Nurse, yeah,
and all that, but
which of course gets them in trouble today. But
what else was big? Now this wasn't big for me, but a lot of people at that time, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was big.
I enjoyed the Turtles cartoon, the original one. It was a lot of fun. I watched that here and there. I enjoyed the comics at the time too. So
I can't remember if it was this time frame. I think it is, but it might be earlier. The Tick also.
The Tick came out in the 90s, but the Tick on the comic book started in the 80s.
Yeah, I actually collected it before it was a big known thing. I had to special order it. It was all black and white.
Well, it was an independent comic from New England Comic Shop there.
Yep.
And the guy that ran the shop said, with this artist, said, let's just create a comic book, put it out ourselves. Right. It was more to promote the shop than it was anything else.
Yeah. So, but the cartoon, I think to this day is the best. I don't like these live action versions they keep doing of the Tick. Bring it back as a cartoon. Yeah. It will be amazing.
The cartoon was fantastic. Now, the neat thing about that one is we've talked about Animaniacs. We mentioned Turtles. The thing that them and Tick have in common is Rob Paulson, a fellow Detroiter, did the voice of Yakko. He's also Pinky. He was Raphael in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Was I believe Donatello in the recent Nickelodeon one, but he's now voice directing the next Turtles cartoon. But in the Tick, he was the second Walter. The first one was I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he was the drummer from the Monkees. Mickey Dolenz. That was who it was.
Yeah.
The things I know out of the top of my head.
But no, he's great. He actually has some kind of special coming out. Well, featuring him and all the voices he's done.
Okay, I know he's got a new show on a paid podcast network through Nerdist called Alpha. It's like where he does interviews and stuff like that. And some of the clips have been popping up. He's been touring with Randy Rogel, and once in a while the other two Animaniacs doing Animaniacs Live. They still haven't come to Detroit. If you guys are listening, come to Detroit.
Now, cartoons, they kind of kept evolving because of cable network TV too.
Yes,
and two shows that I love. Now, this was in my high school years. Beavis and Butthead.
Well, yeah, MTV.
Which was so dumb, but I liked it.
Well, I mean, they were just little bits in between music videos.
Yeah. But even more so, I loved Ren and Stimpy.
Ren and Stimpy started around the time I was just starting college. It was Nickelodeon, and boy, was that adult.
Yeah, well, you brought that up. I thought it was MTV. I don't remember it being Nickelodeon.
No, it was Nickelodeon.
Yeah, but it was on at night.
I used to watch it. It was actually I used to watch it on Saturday and Sundays, like Sunday morning, afternoon.
Oh, really? Yeah. But I loved that.
The original Ren and Stimpy stuff was great. In fact, about a year ago, I happened to find the 3 volumes of DVDs that have the original Ren and Stimpy's. They re-released them pretty cheap, and I was like, I got to buy these. I mean, come on, they had a whole. I love the commercial for a log. It was basically a Slinky commercial for a log.
And another one just popped in my head. I can't believe I didn't list this one. Yeah, Batman, the animated series.
Well, I was going to get that.
That was so well done.
Well, with the 90s after school stuff, so it was afternoons during the week, and so it got an initial 65 episode order, just like Tiny Toons did, Animaniacs, different shows around that time. But it was groundbreaking. I was in college at the time. I was in my third year of college when it started, and it was something that I set up. I had 2 VCRs. I would actually record it on one when I was gone for work and school, and that night when I was studying and writing papers, things like that, I'd have it on, and I'd dub it to another tape to get out the commercials, so I could make it like an 8-hour tape of just Batman.
Right.
And I had those for years until I actually got the DVDs.
And that series gave us Kevin Conroy as the most iconic Batman voice. He is Batman as far as his voice.
And the biggest surprise back then was the fact that Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill, was the Joker.
When I found that out, it just blew my mind.
And he completely reinvented the Joker.
Oh, yeah.
When all the previous iterations we'd seen on TV and movies, it was fine. There was nothing wrong with those. I still like those. But when he came out, his sinisterness in the voice was just crazy.
Yeah, and they've even carried that over into the Arkham Asylum games, where where he's much more scary, and they try to give a more real life version, but they still use Hamill's voice and Conroy's voice for Batman.
And all the new Jokers, since Hamill has retired from doing that.
Well, he keeps popping back in.
Yeah,
he keeps saying he retires, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, he'll be on the next one.
Well, he'll do a special, but all the last couple Batman TV series was a different Joker.
Oh, yeah.
But they were all inspired by Hamill's.
Yeah.
So he really has defined who the Joker is, and Conroy really has defined who the Batman is.
Correct.
Through all the Batman cartoons and even into some of the movies. And
then and also gave us another awesome gem, my personal favorite, Harley Quinn.
Yes.
She's the first character that originated outside of the comic book.
Right. She was introduced in the series by Paul Dini.
Yep.
They wanted to give Joker it
was a throwaway, but it was a throwaway character.
Yeah, she was only meant to be in like the one or two episodes where they introduced it. It was a storyline, but she was so popular they had to bring her back.
Actually, it wasn't because, well, yes and no. It was the actress, the voice actress. She put so much into it and gave such personality to it.
Yeah,
because that wasn't
Arlene Sorkin.
Yeah, they didn't really give her much direction, and they allowed her to do what she wanted, and she really gave the character life.
Yeah,
and it was through her acting, voice acting, that they're like, we have something here. So they were able to keep growing it and into something much more.
Yeah, she was a good actress. And people would actually know her live action wise. She was actually a co-host with Dave Coulier on America's Funniest People, which was like a spinoff from America's Funniest Videos. She was the co-host on that.
Yeah,
and then she went on to do the voice of Harley and created the Harley Quinn that everybody loves to this day.
Yep.
And the voice was a big part of it. I listened to a lot of voice actor podcasts, like Rob Paulson's had his, and a few others popped up, and that's where I learned a lot of my tidbits on stuff, is hearing them talk. And fabulous actors. That's what I love about animation, is you can draw great pictures, have some great fluid animation, but these voice actor guys are, to me, are some of the best actors out there, period.
And that's one of the things where when I watch all these things, like different movies come out or different things, so often they'll go just for a big actor name, but voice actors, really, it is its own art.
Well, it's like listening to Rob Paulson talk about Jimmy Neutron. There was no big names in it, other than the fact in the movie they brought in Patrick Stewart to be the bad guy, but all the main characters were just voice actors that went on to do the TV series afterwards, and the movie did like $100 million. Yeah, because it was huge, because it's about good storytelling. It's about, and the sound of the voices work,
and a good voice actor understands their character, and they understand what to add to that voice to give life to make those traits come to life.
Right.
And and now Mark Hamill, though, he's just a gift. He is a voice actor.
Well, if you listen to him talk, he's a huge animation. He had this movie he did several years ago. He did it at Comic-Con, and it talked about voice actors, stuff like that. And the thing was that he talked about when in some of the behind the scenes stuff, that when he was watching stuff in the late 70s, early 80s, he was actually videotaping TV shows when it was just first starting to do that, so he could pause it to see who the voice actors were.
Wow.
And stuff like that. So he was always big on that, and getting into voice acting to him was, I think, was a goal of his.
Oh yeah.
And that, and
even much before then, like he could do voices. Like there was a thing where he did like the voice of Yoda. Yep. And I'm like, wait a minute, he didn't do the voice of Yoda, but he did it so perfectly.
He was really good at mimicking it.
Yeah, and he did a couple other voices. I'm like, man, I didn't realize he could do all these voices. Then later on, I learned he did the Joker and all this. I'm like, oh, okay, it makes sense now.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about these forever, because I love all these shows. A lot of cool ones from the 90s, especially. I think that were in my late teens to the 20s. That really I still to this day love, and that. But not really necessarily love these guys, but I do like them a lot. We have International Minute Press from Plymouth, Michigan, who design, print, and promote you. And if you're watching us on Facebook Live, you do not see my banner here that I forgot to bring with me this morning, but it would have been like right here with my hands flowing up and down that they printed for us up, because they print everything, and you need it, they can do it for you. They can supply anything you need, especially printing services, custom graphic designs, marketing consultation, and promotional products. IMP has the services and skills to help artists, entrepreneurs looking to take their businesses to the next level by exceeding client and customer expectations. You can visit them at 1058 South Main Street in Plymouth, Michigan, or give them a call at 734-414-6203. That's 734-414-6203. We we have a link on oddmusings.com for their website, so you can visit them that way too. They're also available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under International Minute Press Plymouth, Michigan. So definitely check them out. And if you're looking for some printing needs, especially even like Christmas cards, they do stuff like that right now. So give a call, and so it's a great time to hit them up.
Sounds good. Well, there's so many more cartoons that we would have loved to have gotten to. I mean, but
this could have been an 8-hour show.
Yeah, there's so much. So don't take offense if we didn't mention your favorite cartoon. So coming up this next coming weekend, I will be at the Chippewa Valley High School craft show, holiday craft show that they have going on. So I'll be selling my artwork there. And then I only have one other appearance this year, another small holiday show that'll be in Fraser, Michigan, that I'm doing in December. Yeah. But otherwise, that's it for me. And
I don't have any shows until December when I head down to Georgia for Jekyll Island. It's the Jekyll Comic-Con / Hyde horror show all mixed into one. And that's in Jekyll Island, Georgia. But between now and then, I'm going to be, this week is, I have to finish up artwork for Kevin Minert's Kickstarter.
Yep. Creatures and Creators is the book.
And if we've shared on our pages some things on that. So definitely go to Kickstarter, look for Creatures and Creators. Yep. Support the Kickstarter because we'll have artwork in that.
Or go to our Facebook page. I posted a link to the Kickstarter on there also.
Yeah, definitely. It's a fun stuff. He does some great books like his Poe book, his Wizard of Oz book he did, things like that. And this one's exploring some really cool creatures and creators that we all love, from everything from Dickens to Verne to whoever we else have.
Yeah, so if, the basic premise being we know about the creatures. Yeah. This tells you about the creators, a little bit about the life of each of the authors.
Which I think is going to be cool because there's a movie coming out too I saw that talks about Charles Dickens. Yeah. And that's coming out in the next few weeks. As well as in December, there's a movie coming out that, this isn't a literary character, it's someone I think influenced pop culture throughout the days, but P.T. Barnum starring Hugh Jackman. Or Huge Jackman.
Huge Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
Cool.
But this was fun. I love talking about cartoons. I can talk about them all the time. And there's so many. Like I said, if people came to look through my collection, I would say every third or fourth one would be some type of cartoon movie or a collection. And I own, talk about animes, I own all that. I own all the Pinky and the Brains and things like that because I'm just that kind of geek.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us.
Yep. And if you're out in Rhode Island, go see T-24 at the Rhode Island Comic-Con. I believe that's coming up this weekend or next. I don't have the dates because I'm not going to be there. But I definitely want to promote them. And next week, join us for a very special episode. It'll be episode 28. We'll have a topic for you guys later.
Yes.
And that stuff. But it should be fun.
All right.
Till then, Dominic, take us out, buddy.